Hello, neighbors. Welcome to another special presentation called What We Grow Changes Everything. My name is Eva Bednarchuk, and I'm the founder of the Neighborhood Habitat School. And before I begin, I just wanted to say thank you for all your great comments on the first video about why our backyards matter, which you can find on the Neighborhood Habitat School YouTube channel. So last time I spoke about how many of us are wondering, what difference can I make? What difference can one person make given how crazy our world seems to be right now? And I suggested that one way we can make use of our agency for positive change is right in our backyards. And I talked about that perhaps instead of just maintaining lawns in our yards, what if we could transform our yards and make them into refuges for nature and local biodiversity? What if our yards could become places of shelter and nourishment for all kinds of interesting neighbors as well as for ourselves? I'm very fortunate to be restoring habitats professionally over the last 25 years in Ontario as well as abroad. And I've been working in places like urban parks and rare tallgrass prairies and oak woodlands. And I've also been rewilding many backyards, both my own and those of others. And today I wanted to share a story of one yard that I helped to rewild. So back in 2015, I was the ecologist at Lower Trent Conservation in Trenton, Ontario. And our office building was surrounded by lots of lawn, concrete, and asphalt. And I really wanted us to stop mowing, and I wanted to create some beneficial space for insects. I asked our boss and she gave us permission. So we began. We began by removing a tiny little pie slice shaped piece of lawn. One day over lunch, a bunch of us got together and we planted all kinds of native wildflowers, native grasses, and shrubs. And nature responded very quickly. And things just a few months later were looking really lush and happy. And that's because the plant species were well matched to the sandy and sunny site conditions on site. And the signs of life were pretty much immediate. There was an increased diversity of pollinators. Uh, we saw all kinds of bees, flies, beetles, even hummingbirds, all kinds of insects that never showed up when this was just a lawn. And many of those insects that were now feeding on the plants became food for other insects and birds, of course. The plants were producing lots of seeds. So things were really moving in the right direction. And the results that we were seeing were in line with a recent study published in 2024 in Urban Ecosystems, which reviewed some 165 research papers and found overwhelming evidence that native plants in urban landscapes support more insects and a greater diversity of insects, including pollinators. So the moral of the story is that when we plant native species, we're not just gardening, we're actually rebuilding relationships within the ecological neighborhoods where we live and work. So a couple of years into the project, we began to see some increasing structural diversity as well. There were plants of different heights. There was some woody debris accumulating, if you will, but there was still a lot of lawn and thus a lot of opportunity to do better for the neighborhood. So we decided, oops, so we decided to create a rain garden as well. We dug a depression on the side of the building, covered it with a thick layer of wood chips, and directed the downspout to empty into this area. Then we planted it with native plants that like to occasionally have wet roots, and we were off to the races. Again, nature responded favorably. The rain garden would fill with water when it rained, and then it would allow that water to soak into the ground, recharging the water table. And it supported a greater diversity of plants that were there already. So this was an increase in diversity. And over time, as we grew this project, we were so encouraged by the results that we kept adding more sections of lawn to the rewilding project. Here's a picture where we began to solarize an area of lawn in preparation for future seeding and planting. So what we were doing is we were just working in sections around the building. By 2022, which was 7 years into the project, the results were truly astounding. By that point, we had rewilded all of the lawn at the front of the building using the native species and the techniques that we knew worked really well at this site. And the garden looked great from every angle. And not only did insects and birds like it, were drawn to it, but people were drawn to it as well. And they would like to linger and enjoy the space compared to when it was just dead grass some 7 years earlier. Last fall, I visited this very noisy and established neighborhood on its 10-year anniversary. And here is a short clip of my visit, and I invite you to pay particular attention to the background soundscape.
Hey, it's Eva here. I'm at the Lower Trent Conservation Administrative Office north of Trenton. And this is a garden I designed and helped to plant 10 years ago in small sections, and just wanted to show you what it looks like today. Looks pretty amazing. It's so neat to see that 10 years later, there's still a huge diversity of native plants, lots of insects and birds making good use of this little habitat pocket. You could do it too.
So if you're interested in rewilding a section of lawn or your yard, you don't need to be an expert to begin. You just need some guidance and a willingness to start small. In the next video, I'll show you how we can rewild backyards, some examples of different techniques that you could try. But in the meantime, I'm curious, what kinds of different habitats do you want to create in your yard? Just let me know. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time.